of Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. As you can see, we're recording it. And let's just start with our first slide about some housekeeping. Great, thank you. So we are asking everyone in this session to begin with your microphone muted, please. So that just avoids any disruptions. At some point, if you have a question that we need you to speak about, we'll usually put questions ask you to put questions in the chat. But if you do need to speak, we'll have you turn your microphone back on again.
Sorry, Trink, I just muted you.
Okay,
very efficient.
Okay. I'm still here, everyone. So again, I'm Trink. We are asking you to keep your microphones muted. We're going to ask you to also turn your videos off just to ensure that we have enough bandwidth. And we do recommend that you use your speaker view just to be able to see the slides well enough, and our wonderful speaker tonight, Pete Rasmussun. And please, if you have questions as we go along, go ahead and put them in the chat window. And that way I will be collecting the questions and then asking Pete, handing them off to Pete as we go along at appropriate breaks. And that allows you to ask your questions as they occur to you. So that'll be good. There is a live transcription button at the bottom, and if you're having any difficulty hearing and would like some assistance with that, you can turn that on for closed captioning. I'll be kind of handling any technical issues, so feel free to chat directly to me rather than to everyone if you have any technical problems. And remember that after this class, like all of our other classes, we will send this presentation and the link to the video to your email. So let's go to our second slide, please. Thank you. This is just a reminder about who we are. I think most of you know. Anybody new to this, though, it's good to know this is brought to you by the UC Cooperative Extension Master Gardeners of Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito counties. We are research-based knowledge and information on home horticulture, and sometimes pest management, and generally sustainable landscape practices. So Master Gardeners all over the country is focus on on home gardeners, and that's what we do too, with the support and knowledge of the UC of the UC Cooperative Extension Farm Advisors, which are a wonderful group. So next slide. So we're just now going to jump right into our presentation with Pete Rasmussun, our garlic guru, and I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Pete.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Trink, for going over all that. And yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Garlic is definitely a passion crop of mine, both on the commercial side of things in the past, and now more as a home garden hobby. And I'm excited to, spend an hour and a half with everybody that also has an interest and a background in growing garlic, or potentially is considering planting it for the first time this fall. So thank you to the UC Master Gardeners, and for everybody that's on this call. It's a pleasure of mine to get to do this, and I appreciate everybody taking some time out of your evening and getting into some garlic talk. So just a little overview here. We're like was said by Trink, we're going to try to keep it within about an hour so that we have plenty of time at the end for question and answer. And I would say I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. So if there's anything that makes sense to address in the moment, I'll do my best to do that. Otherwise, we'll have a good chunk of time at the end to address specific questions. I assume that because it's a Master Gardener audience, got some experienced gardeners on this call and involved. So I'm also excited to kind of hear a little bit of other people's experience growing garlic. I turned 40 in July, and I planted my first garlic clove when I was 20. And so this marks the first year where half of my life I've planted garlic every single fall. But accumulative, I know that we've got a lot more garlic experience in 20 years. If there's 30 people, 40, 50 people on this call that have planted some garlic. So I'm excited to hear what varieties have worked with you in the past, and where you're growing your garlic throughout these tri-counties. So please do throw out any comments or questions in the chat as we go, and we'll make sure we have a good chunk of time at the end to have more of a back and forth dialogue. This is just a quick slide to show the overview of what we're going to touch on. Why grow garlic in the home garden? We're going to talk about that, a little bit of the origin and distribution of ancient garlic's past, and how it became one of the most widely used culinary herbs and medicines across the world. We'll dive into the hardneck versus softneck garlic varietal discussion. And then there'll be a short video, a planting demonstration, and talking about garlic care and maintenance during the 4 seasons. And then wrap up just with a little bit of history around some of the ancient stories of garlic's, kind of origin as a medicinal crop. It's one of the oldest cultivated crops in the world, right along there with the gourd. Probably 7,000 to 10,000 years of history of garlic planting and growing. So we're going to just kind of touch on that, and then some resources at the end, and then, like I said, plenty of time for question and answer. So we can go along to the next slide. All right, so just less than 5 minutes of a little backstory of how I got to be in love with garlic and garlic growing. When I was little, I had the opportunity. My mom was a gardener, so I spent a lot of time in the home garden. There's a story that she has told me time and time again that one day I harvested every single thing in her garden without asking her, and put it into a wheelbarrow and took it to neighbors across the street trying to sling my produce. Yeah, my mom's produce. And she kind of always jokes that was the start of my love affair with gardening, but also kind of trying to be an entrepreneur and trying to sell the crop. So that was early days. Before I was probably 5 years old, I was hanging out in my mom's garden. I went to UC Santa Cruz to study marine biology, and started taking pre-calculus and biochemistry and a whole lot of prerequisites. And about halfway through my first year, I started to look at other options for my time at university, and stumbled upon the UCSC Farm and Garden and the Farm and Garden program. And that kind of really redirected my whole next 3.5 years at UC Santa Cruz. I got into the environmental studies program and at the agroecology major, and did as many field courses as I possibly could. I did some independent study courses where I worked on various farms up and down the coast. And at the Chadwick Garden, I fell in love with garlic. It was a moonlit walk one evening, and I came into the gated garden there at the Chadwick Garden and saw all these, spears, emerald spears coming up through the mulch, with these signs that said Georgian crystal and Transylvania and Siberian purple stripe. And I had no idea what they were, but the names and just it was one of the only things in the winter that was growing besides a cover crop. And I would say, it was definitely love at first sight. I remember I wrote about it in my journal. I drew a picture of these plants, and I literally had no idea. I think it said, their botanical name, Allium sativum and Allium sativum ophioscoridon, which are hardneck and softneck garlic. I had no idea what crops they were. And, I think within the week I talked to Orrin Martin, who's a garden manager there. And that was the very start of my love affair with garlic. So I have a lot to be thankful for the UCSC Farm and Garden to inspire that. Did my thesis on starting a home, homegrown revolution is what I call it, kind of starting a farm in my parents' backyard at 5,000 feet in northern Utah. So that's what you see here, about 3 acres or so, mixed vegetables, up at 5,000 feet. So we could get snow in June and a frost in August. So limited to what we could grow, but a lot of leafy greens and a lot of root crops, and garlic thrived there. Just some photos of my sister, my mom, rhubarb, lavender, crops that thrive in mountainous climates. My wife and my son, different varieties of garlic that, we were able to grow. I renamed some. That variety was harvested on my son's birthday, so it had a new name. But farming and the agrarian life is a great way to connect with family. So that was a big part of my early years of farming, was trying to involve all people in my family. So why grow garlic? I was just talking to Trink. She was saying, I'm going to grow garlic for the first time this fall. I'm tired of getting low quality garlic that's sprouting, or that's soft, or that's, doesn't have a good kick and flavor. Garlic is one of the most ancient medicines, plant-based medicines. I think over 7,000 years of documented records showing garlic to support the immune system, to be antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It's something that in this era of, even during the time of COVID, anything that can really invigorate and fire up the immune system, I think is something that we should be taking seriously, especially if we can grow it in our backyard. And so the medicinal qualities of garlic are unrivaled. There's, along with ginger, turmeric, and onion, those are kind of like the basics of Ayurvedic medicine, which is, has some of the most deep history of plant-based medicine. And so, we've encountered clients that have bought garlic from us before that strictly use their garlic for medicines. They, one recipe that I've come across is taking the raw cloves and putting it into honey, and that basically preserves it, as long as there's no oxygen in there, preserves it, kind of indefinitely, at least for years. And that anytime anybody in the family has a cold, they scoop out a big chunk of garlic clove with honey, put it in hot water with some lemon, and that's like the go-to thing to kind of ward off any colds that are coming in the cold season. So garlic's use as medicine, and something you can grow in the backyard, is unrivaled in my opinion. Culinary staple, it's often one of the first things that gets chopped up in the kitchen when you're starting a meal, whether it's a sauce or a dressing. It's in, many cultural culinary recipes across the world. So it's something that is a standard in the kitchen. Connection to the 4 seasons, especially in a mild climate like we have in central coastal California, there really are management practices and home gardening tasks that really connect you to the seasons. Mid-October through mid-November is the time to get your cloves in the ground. Winter time is a little bit of a slowdown. Spring is all about weeding and watering and pest management. The summer is all about your harvesting and your curing. And then if you're saving your cloves, that just starts your cycle over again. So it's really a great crop that has something to do in every season. In terms of rotation in the home garden, it also can work nicely in that it's planted in the fall after some of your crops come out of the ground. So if you're growing, say, tomatoes, around this time of year, things start to slow down. Maybe the 1st of November, you're harvesting the last of your tomatoes. Tomatoes come out. compost and amendments go into your soil. Your garlic gets planted. It's in the ground all the way until say June or early July. It comes out. You amend your garden bed again, and it's time for planting, some fall crops, maybe some brassicas, broccoli or kales or lettuces. So it can work in nicely to the rotation it does. In comparison to something like lettuce, it's in the ground for a lot longer time. So it does take up space in the home garden. But if you have rotations planned nicely, it can work in well to a multi-succession planting. I put in there garlic for education just because I've worked with school gardens in the past, and it's a great, if anybody involved here works in school gardens in any way or has kids or grandkids, it's a satisfying crop to grow for children. The seed is large, it's a size of your thumb. It's a Brazil nut size clove versus something like a lettuce or a carrot seed, which is microscopic. The clove is very large. Kids with small hands can easily hold it in their hand, push it into the ground, and feel that feeling of planting a seed. It works in nicely to the kind of the school year cycle. You can plant it in the fall, a little bit after school starts. It has its growth during the majority of the school season, and can be harvested at the end of the year for putting into a pizza sauce, a tomato sauce for pizza or something like that. So a great crop to grow for kids, I would say. Another thing, this is more maybe on the commercial side, but I say gathering community, just because in the past, this picture here is the Real Food Rising youth education group in Salt Lake City. And garlic's kind of main pushes to grow commercially are all about the planting in the fall and the harvest and the curing and the cleaning in the summer. And so if you're growing to scale, a couple thousand pounds or, a lot of garlic, it's something that really lends itself well to community gatherings. We did, garlic planting festival, garlic harvest festival, where, it was a great time to show the simple process of pulling a garlic out of the ground, but to have a gathering with community. I put in there also homegrown gift. Nothing is better than something from the garden as a gift to a neighbor or a family member. Unlike lettuce or other fruits that are perishable, it's something that you could harvest in July, cure in August and September, put into a nice gift bag and send across the country to a relative in the mail for, say, Thanksgiving or something. So it's a great thing to grow in the backyard for your own kitchen, but it also lends itself well to being a gift from the heart and from the garden to pass on to friends and family. And then I just do have to say the stunning beauty. Above ground, garlic is pretty unique plant. Some people have walked through the garlic paths in June and July on the fields and said, "Oh, is this corn?" Because it is a 2 or 3 foot tall plant, very symmetrical emerald shaped leaves. And it's a beautiful plant just in your home landscaping. So if you only plant one bulb, say 6 cloves, in the entrance to your home or something, it's a stunning plant. It does have 3 or 4 or 5 months of real beauty in the home garden. So I could keep going, but there's many reasons to grow garlic in the home garden. These are just a couple pictures from the farm in Utah. It obviously does not mind cold. The picture on the left is probably in May with a little dusting of snow and probably 25 degrees. It could care less in the spring about any cold. So something you plant in the fall and just let it go until it emerges in the spring, and very hardy plant. Labeling your garlic varieties is always good to do. We have, looks like Ukrainian and elephant garlic over here. Always good to, at planting time, put a stake in the ground, label the varieties. And then also, if you have a garden journal, put it in there in case you lose track of the stakes. But if you're growing multiple varieties and you plan on saving your seed, it's nice to label your crops. All right. So garlic origin and distribution. So this picture is taken out of the window of an airplane flying over the Salt Lake Valley. But it's very similar to photos that I've seen of the Tian Shan Mountains in Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Iran, Iraq. The high mountain plateaus of Central Asia are the where garlic originated. It's a land of seasonal extremes. So in the summertime, it's hot and it's dry, very little moisture from the rains. In the winter, it's cold. And the Garlic Crescent is, like I said, kind of in this area of Central Asia, highland plateaus. But because of its medicinal qualities and because of its storability, some of the earliest garlic that was cultivated, first harvested wild, and then shown to have medicinal qualities and flavor qualities for seasoning food. It was one of the earliest currencies of Central Asia. So it was something that nomadic tribes in the mountainous areas of Central Asia could harvest, dry, cure, put in a rucksack, climb over the mountains to a neighboring tribe or community and have as barter, have as trade. Garlic, well-grown and well-cured garlic can store 6 to 12 months. And so it's something that literally was used as a currency, had a lot of value in early nomadic cultures. And very quickly experimentation began around how to cultivate the crop and grow it in a more controlled agricultural setting. And so, like I said, along with the gourd, it was one of the first known cultivated crops. And because early nomadic cultures were able to use this as a trading currency, it very quickly spread from its native land of the Central Asian plateau throughout Mesopotamia, the Silk Road, into the Mediterranean regions. And so as traders and nomadic peoples began to get a hold of this, miracle bulb that had these great flavors, that had these medicinal qualities, it became something that was also cultivated throughout different climactic regions, throughout different soil types, and through different cultural techniques used by the early gardeners of these regions. And today we think that there's over, 100 is a conservative number. I think there's probably hundreds of different varietals of garlic, and those varietals of garlic came forth because of different soil types, different climate zones, different peoples growing garlic throughout this Mediterranean region, Central Asian mountain region. It gave rise to these diverse varietals of garlic. Okay, so hardneck versus softneck. So hardneck garlic, also referred to as stiff-neck garlic, Allium sativum ophioscoridon. That is botanically the most closely related garlic to wild garlic. A lot of the chefs that I've sold garlic to in the past, they prefer hardneck garlic to softneck garlic because of the flavor. Hardneck garlic is thought to be true garlic flavor. Softneck garlic, Allium sativum, is the more cultivated garlic. So if you were to go into any supermarket in the state of California or in the United States, 99% of the garlic that you would find is softneck garlic, and most likely California early or California late. Those are the two most widely grown North American garlic strains commercially. In my opinion, low flavor index, high storability, uniformity, all the things that kind of commercial growers look for in terms of yields and profitability. But in terms of flavor, hardneck garlic is definitely, I would say, superior to softneck garlic. And then, so within the hardneck garlic family, there are several different groups of I just unmuted myself. You can hear me? Okay. So within the hardneck varietals, there's porcelain, there's rocambole, there's standard purple stripe, marbled purple stripe, subclasses basically of hardneck garlic that express different characteristics. For the coastal regions, and I'd say California in general, unless you're in a real high mountain, cold climate area, I would recommend for hardneck garlic, marbled purple stripes, which is like a Siberian garlic. Standard purple stripe, which is Chestnut red, is a great garlic that some neighbors of mine have grown for years in Seabright, about a mile away from the ocean. And you'll see one characteristic of hardneck garlic in the middle picture here, it produces a scape. And a scape is, basically softneck garlic does not produce a scape because it's been cultivated for so long that in some way the genetics of the softneck garlic has said, hey, I think some human's going to plant me. I don't need to send up this flower stalk anymore. Hardneck garlic has its more genetics based on wild garlic, which in the past has always sent up this seed stalk, which at the tip of that curlicue will actually open up similar to an allium and onion flower and have actual seeds in it, bulbils and seeds. And what we do for growing garlic, hardneck garlic, is we remove that scape. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's what that unique curlicue is there. It does not exist on softneck. It's unique to hardneck garlic, and it's actually a great culinary secondary harvest that you get if you grow hardneck garlic. So, and yeah, I'm just seeing the questions come through there. That's right. The Chestnut red and the marbled purple stripe Siberian. Those are two garlics that I know I've grown personally in California on the coast here. They do well. The porcelains and the rocamboles tend to really thrive better in cold winter climates. So where, you're getting snow on the ground and freezing temperatures, but Siberian, Chestnut red, those both do are hardnecks that I've seen thrive in this area. Great. Softneck garlic. So softneck garlic does grow well in Mediterranean climates. It's a garlic that can tolerate mild winters. A lot of the hardnecks, their real flavor characteristics and their large clove size depends on cold winter temperatures. The softnecks, the softnecks do prefer a milder winter. They also grow well. They're very adaptable, I guess I would say. The hardnecks are a little more finicky. The softnecks tend to thrive more in mild climates, but they also can perform in winter climates. They're great for braiding because they have obviously a soft neck, and so the stem can be braided into beautiful braids. We've put herbs in the braids before, or dried lavender, just for the beauty. They're functional beauty as well. You can hang them in the kitchen, and when you're ready to cook or use a bulb, you just snip off with scissors one of the bulbs and use that until you're done, and then work out your way up to the next one. So the braids are really functional beauty. It's a great way to store and hold on to your garlic. I would say in general, softneck garlic has more cloves than hardneck, but smaller cloves. So A standard hardneck garlic may have 4 to 6 Brazil nut size large cloves, often confused with elephant garlic because of the size of the clove, versus soft neck may have 12 to 16 cloves, but much smaller. So, that's kind of one of the differences in terms of bulb arrangement and clove size is a soft neck, can have higher yields because you have, more cloves and therefore more bulbs per plantable bulb than you would get out of a hard neck. And often you'll see, if you buy your own seed garlic, you'll see that hardneck garlic is often priced higher than softneck garlic, and that is because the yields are much lower because you have less cloves per pound. All right, so now I'm just going to do this, I think, about a 5-minute little planting demo. You see my at the time 2-year-old daughter coming in and out of the shot. But take some notes on this. I do discuss spacing and orientation of the clove and that kind of thing. And I'll do a little review at the end, but this is kind of a basic home backyard garden garlic planting 101. Hello everybody, my name is Pete Rasmusson, and I'm here to do a quick garlic planting demonstration. This video is meant to accompany the Growing Great Garlic workshop that I'm doing in collaboration with the Center for Agroecology and Sustainable Food Systems at UC Santa Cruz. It is fall, so it's garlic planting season, and I just want to go over some of the methods and techniques that I've used in the home garden. As a side note, we're at the home of a fellow garlic enthusiast and garlic home grower in the Seabright neighborhood in Santa Cruz. We're about a mile from the Monterey Bay and the Pacific Ocean, and probably about 25 feet above sea level. And this grower here has been growing hardneck garlic for at least the last 5 years or so. And common that in this region, maritime climates and cooler winter temperatures, softneck garlic is often preferred and grows better. And it's often believed that hardneck garlic thrives more in mountainous climates. That being said, Chesnock Red, a standard purple stripe variety, has been grown in rotation here for several years with a lot of success. Beautiful bulb size, nice purple coloration, nice storability, and real quality garlic. So saying that just to point out that hardneck garlic can thrive in coastal climates. Okay, so your bed has been amended. Amendments worked in 6 to 8 inches into the top of the soil. It's fall, it's planting time. On the home scale, it's great to separate your bulbs into plantable cloves right at the time of planting. That way they're less of a chance to dehydrate, and it's best to separate right at the time of planting. So this is a beautiful porcelain variety grown by my parents in northern Utah at Sandhill Farms. That's what we're going to be planting today. When you pop the cloves, it's kind of your last opportunity to inspect the quality of the cloves and make sure there's no damage to the plantable cloves. So it's your last chance to kind of take a look and make sure there's no damage, no dehydration, that they're nice and firm, in good shape before you put them in the ground. It's great to remove the outside layers of the clove wrappers, but keep the clove coverings intact. If they come off during separation, that's okay, but it is best for protection of the clove to have that clove wrapping in place. One technique that you can use to separate the cloves nicely and not split that clove covering is use your thumbnail and just separate the segments so that when you split it, it comes apart easily. Once you've got your bulb separated into the individual planting cloves, I like to simply use my hand to make a line. If you're doing a larger planting, you can use string, a piece of wood, something to keep your line straight. It's always good to have help in the garden as well when you can. Come right over this way. Okay, so once you've made a nice line, I like to orient the cloves all in the same direction. You'll see that there's a curved side of the garlic and a straight side of the garlic. We found over the years that garlic grows this beautiful symmetrical fan-shaped leaf pattern. And when the cloves are oriented in the same direction, you have that leaf pattern all growing in the same direction. Why does that matter? Well, it tends to create a nice uniform growth of your row of garlic, and so airflow is improved, circulation is improved, which is important, especially in humid areas or maritime climates. Also, the leaves all grow in a nice pattern, meaning that cultivation, weeding in between the rows is easier and less likelihood of damaging leaves when you're cultivating, especially with a hoe. Again, not necessary on the home scale. However, it is a technique that we've used for years. So before planting, I like to space the garlic, and I use a pinky to thumb shaka for spacing, which is about 8 inches. Again, orienting the cloves in the same direction. And I like to leave them on the soil surface until the whole row is laid out. The next row will also be 8 inches apart, so making your next row of garlic another 8 inches apart. Once your cloves are laid out, planting depth, I like to plant to my 3rd knuckle. You can't really plant garlic too deep, but you can plant it too shallow, especially in cold growing areas where you can have heaving, and the garlic can actually push out of the soil with repeated frost and thaw cycles. And so right to the 3rd knuckle is deep enough. Make sure that you push the garlic down to make good contact with the soil at the bottom. Once the garlic is in the ground, just simply covering it with the excess soil, and then to make good contact with the root zone and the soil, pushing it down to remove any air pockets. Make sure to label your garlic varieties and patiently await until they emerge. All righty, so hopefully you took some notes on that. We'll kind of go through some of the most important specifics of what to do in the fall when it comes to bee planting time. But I thought, since this is a virtual event, it's nice to have a little bit of just a demonstration of seeing how we plant, how we orient the cloves, the spacing, that kind of thing. So we'll just kind of jump right in here. I am seeing there's a bunch of good questions and comments coming up. So we'll do our best to address those likely at the end, but great questions coming through. Thank you to everybody. So here is just a little, lowdown overview, I guess, of the varieties I was saying. So in terms of the hardneck garlic, Siberian, I know, has done great here. It's grown in Texas and some of the southern climates as well. So it's a hardneck variety that actually is fine with mild winters. Chesnock red, same thing. Chesnock is actually garlic in Russian. So, Russian red, you'd think that it's a garlic that would thrive in cold climates, but it also has done well, like I said in the video, at this fellow garlic growers, home garden for the last 5 years, right in Seabright, which is, less than a mile away from the coast. Music, it is a great hardneck variety, pretty adaptable, I would say, if you're more up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Bonnie Doon, some of the higher elevations where it's a little bit less maritime influence and more cold in the winter, that would be worth trying. In Chilium red is a great soft neck variety. Transylvania Nootka Rose has grown in the San Juan Islands of Washington State for decades. Yes, Michael, I love it. Nootka Rose, yeah, great variety. And Nootka Rose is a silver skin variety, soft neck, but one of the longest storing garlics that I've ever grown. Definitely, I've harvested this in July and had it still hard, firm, and beautiful in the following July when the next year's crop is ready to harvest. So it's a great garlic, real small cloves, but really nice long storing bulb. site selection and rotation. The main thing with garlic is that because the part of the plant that is the reproductive part of the plant, the cloves, is in the soil versus something that sets its seed above ground like a lettuce, it's going to be more susceptible to having issues with fungal problems, with issues with rotation. So it's definitely not something that you'd want to grow in the same bed that you had onions in during the summer and leeks in during the previous winter. It's an allium. It's an allium plant. We try to do a 3-year rotation with our garlic at a commercial scale. So in the home scale, if you can grow garlic, if you have 3 beds or say 4 beds of raised beds, 1 year you grow garlic in bed A, the next year you grow it in bed B, the next year bed C, and then if you've got a 4th one, grow it in there, the 4th one, and then start back over, and rotate your alliums as well. If you're growing leeks or onions, it's definitely a crop that is susceptible to disease issues if you don't have good rotation. I guess one more thing on seed selection and issues with fungal issues, disease problems. If you can avoid it, don't just go to a grocery store and get culinary garlic and plant it. Culinary garlic has often been treated and sprayed or put into exposed to conditions that will eliminate some of the fungal growth, but are also not good for the garlic as a seed stock. And also, culinary garlic is not tested for some of the basic, pink root rot, fusarium, some of the common fungal and viral infections that do create issues with garlic in the home garden or in the commercial scale. So it is best to seek out certified seed garlic, ideally organic certified seed garlic from seed garlic growers whose focus is to grow high quality disease-free garlic. I have a couple of links at the end. Currently, I don't have any seed garlic available, but if anybody is in a tight spot and can't find any garlic, I do have a couple of friends that do grow garlic in California that it's probably going to be in Chilium red, softneck. But if anybody gets into a tight spot and can't find any online seed garlic, please email me, and I would be able to get you some in Chilium red. So soil preparations and amendments. Garlic is what is considered a heavy feeder. So it is, a compost that's rich in nitrogen is great. You don't want to try to plant your garlic in mediocre soil in the fall and then try to top dress it or give additional amendments in the spring. It's really best to work in your amendments 4 to 8 inches into your soil in the fall. If it's aged compost and it's not hot, you can definitely mix it in within days of planting. If it's semi-aged compost like chicken manure, something like that, I would say mix it into your garden bed a couple of weeks to 3 weeks before you plant. The garlic clove, especially when you retain the clove covering and don't peel it down all the way naked, but keep the clove covering on there. That is a protective layer that is really helpful to keep disease out, but also if you're putting, semi-decomposed compost in there, it'll protect the clove from burning. Best to use well-aged compost, nitrogen-rich amendments, and that's that I really recommend for soil preparation. Garlic has what we call superficial root structure, so it doesn't compete well with weeds, and it doesn't need to have amendments or compost work down 12 inches deep. It only has, 6 to 7, 8 inches at the most of growth on the roots, and so your amendments should be kind of relatively worked in, relatively shallow. When to plant, I would say if you're anywhere in these tri-counties that we're talking about, coastal California to inland, Mid-October through December 1st is a good range. Orrin Martin has a great handout. I think it's called the Garlic Primer. I'm sure it's available on CASFIS website. We may even link to it. He calls it the holiday plant because I think he says you plant at Halloween. Well, I can't remember, something at Thanksgiving, something, you fertilize it St. Patty's Day, you harvest it the 4th of July. It is a crop that in general in this area you want to get in the ground before the rains start. It doesn't need any irrigation. It'll sprout and grow above ground without any supplemental irrigation. But I would say the ideal time, let's say, the 15th through the 15th of October through the 1st of November. That's an ideal time. Rust is an issue that plagues garlic growers on the coast. Rust it's a spore that can be easily transmitted through the fog. And have heard people have good success with planting garlic later, like mid-December through the 1st of January. And the reason for that is that when rust hits in the middle of the winter, the plants are more resilient and resistant when they're smaller versus when they're, a foot tall. And so if you plant later, if the rust does hit, it's kind of going to grow through that rust event and be fine. The only thing that you risk with that is that the vigor of the clove decreases over time as it oxidizes and dehydrates. So my recommendation is before Thanksgiving, Halloween. That's a great, end of this month is a great time to get your garlic in the ground.
Pete, can I interrupt? There was a question about how much sunlight for your bed for this. Could you address that at this point?
Absolutely. Yeah. Garlic, I would say in general, does prefer full sun. In partly shady, locations, you'll have a lot of vegetative growth because that plant's trying to reach to the sunlight and get more photosynthesis. And so it's a very leggy looking plant that doesn't have as much vigor as if it's in the full sun. So, the only downside is that you're just going to have smaller bulb size likely. So it does prefer full sun, south facing, warm. Full sun is best. But I have seen garlic, produce definitely nice bulbs in partial shade as well. Yeah. So can you just scroll down a little bit there on the slide? So it's planting time. Clove popping, that's the process of breaking up the bulb into individual planting cloves. That's best to do as soon to planting time as you can. So if you're growing an acre of garlic, you probably do it the week before you're going to plant, because it's going to take 5 people, 6 or 7 hour days to break apart 1,000 pounds of garlic. If you're doing 5 bulbs in your backyard, then the day that you're going to plant, you go out to your garden, you sit down, you break apart your bulb, and you plant right away. One thing, I think it was Michael Brown that mentioned this, and in Utah, I've had a garlic planting gatherings where I show up with 5 bottles of vodka and a bunch of crates of garlic seed, and they kind of look at me like, what's going on here? This is not Mormon approved. What are you doing? And pre-soaking your garlic cloves in a high percentage, high proof alcohol is a great way to eliminate any potential fungal or viral issues with your cloves. So, especially if you're saving your seed year after year, maybe you're not able to stick to a real good 3 or 4 year rotation, but you want to ensure that you're not getting fungal diseases in your garlic. You can take literally, vodka or any high proof alcohol, and once you've separated your cloves and they still have the clove wrapper on them, I like to put them in a crate, the crate into a tub, dump the alcohol over the cloves so that they're covering, let them soak anywhere from overnight to, 6 to 12 hours is fine as well. That will really help to kill any potential, fungal issues that are harbored in the soil that carry on to the clove. It's just kind of a fun thing to do. I haven't done any garlic infused beverages per se with this, but it is a good way to ensure that you're not going to have fungal issues with your garlic. So thanks for that comment, Michael, in there. And that is something that we have done in the past, especially with new seed garlic that we've purchased, that we don't know its history. We don't know how it was cared for. We want to ensure that it's not going to infect our other garlic. That's a great way to do it. Spacing, like I said, depends on your scale and depends on your weed management techniques. So if you're growing on a small scale and you have really high fertility soil, you're able to put 3 or 4 inches of soil, of compost, and you've got good fertility, you could go as close as 6 inches by 6 inches. If you're growing 100-foot rows of garlic, maybe you want to do 12 inches between your rows and 6 inches between your cloves. You think a nice sized garlic's about the size of your fist. And if you have high fertility soil, you can plant closer. If you have lower fertility soil, you can plant a little farther apart. Standard in the home garden, like I said, is the shaka, which for me is 8 inches by 8 inches. So 8 inches between the cloves in a row, and then your rows 8 inches apart. And that's just a kind of a good standard spacing. Orientation, like I showed in the video, if you put all of the cloves going in the same way, you're going to have the above ground part of the plant growing symmetrically, which just helps with weeding. So you're not breaking leaves as you're weeding. If you're weeding with a hoe, if you're weeding by hand and it's in a 4 by 8 foot garden box, again, probably not as big of a deal, except for the symmetry and the aesthetics. It just kind of looks nice and organized if you plant them in the same way. Depth, you can't really plant garlic too deep, but you can plant it too shallow, especially in cold weather climates where you can get heaving. I like to say plant to the 3rd knuckle. So you push the garlic down all the way to your 3rd knuckles buried, and then make sure you kind of push the top of the clove down with your thumb so that it stays down at that depth when you pull your hand up. You definitely don't want to be able to see the top of the garlic clove when you pull your hand out. You want it to be nice and settled into the soil. The base of the plant, the base of the clove, you want to have real good contact with the soil. And then, like we showed in the video, compressing the soil a little bit, get rid of the air pockets. That'll also help decrease the likelihood of any fungal activity, since you don't have air and water, around the clove. So a nice pat down of the clove helps secure the clove in place. And then let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about mulching and not mulching. These are just some pictures of some nice chicken manure and mushroom compost that we use. On the right hand side. On the left hand side is our green manure crop that we would grow during the season before we plant the garlic. Anything that can add organic matter and nitrogen to your soil pre-planting is gonna result in your healthiest vegetative plant. The healthiest vegetative plant then results in the nicest, largest bulbs. Gotcha, Trink. So these are just some photos of how we lay out our spacing. It's not necessary on a home scale to have really straight lines, but if you're weeding with a hoe or a tractor, having really straight lines just helps make it efficient. You can see some of the spacing layouts that we do. The planting date and the varietal is nice to put on a stake. This shows tucked in for the winter. So patting down the garlic to get rid of the air pockets is shown here. some different ways that we've dealt with conserving moisture and limiting weed growth. On the left is a woven Sunbelt 3.2 ounce weed fabric with holes burned into the fabric, and then using a dibbler and planting the cloves into a preset, orientation with the spacing. It's a great way. Wood chips in the path, very little weeding that you do. One option on the other side shows a dusting of snow with straw mulch. One thing you don't want to use is hay. Hay has seed in it. I learned that the hard way. Put down a half an acre of that stuff and then got a whole bunch of hay sprouting up in the spring and had to weed it by hand. So make sure you're getting straw if you're going to go that route. And I'm just going to address this one quickly because it came up. Yes, you can grow garlic in pots. It's superficial root structure, like I said. Yes, say no to hay. So ideally your planting container would be 12 to 18 inches deep with real high fertility soil in that. And you just need to keep an eye on your water, because a contained container is going to dry out much quicker than the soil. And garlic really does like to be well watered during the vegetative growth time. So keep an eye on that if you're going to be growing in a container. I've grown a decent sized garlic in a mason jar. So yeah, you can definitely grow it in a container. This just shows different ways of planting. This is a plastic mulch experiment. I really don't recommend that. It only lasted one season. Waste of plastic. You can't reuse it the next year, but farming is all about experimenting. So we did do that one year. Next photo is just a picture of some recently planted garlic that's waiting to be patted down. In the winter, it's like I said here, it's a waiting game, especially if you're in a northern or winter climate. There's going to be snow on the ground. If you're in a coastal climate, you will see emergence. Probably if you plant in the 1st of November, I would say by the 1st of December, you'll see these little spears coming out of the ground. There's no need to irrigate unless we have, I don't even want to jinx it by saying it. We're going to get good rain this winter. No need to irrigate your garlic unless we have months of no rain in the winter. In the mild winter regions, yeah, you may start to do a little bit of light weeding. It's always better to weed. You'll see in this picture, there's a little tiny sprout of a weed coming up over here. Yep, right there. It's always good to get it when it's that size, when it just takes a thumb and a pointer finger to pull out of the ground. And when it's triple that size and has roots and starts to take nutrients away from the plant. So mulch is great, and early weeding is really important. Okay, so oh yes, Martha, you've also full of great questions. So springtime weed management is kind of number one. Garlic, again, superficial root structure. Orrin Martin always says you can either grow weeds or garlic, but you can't grow both. Grow garlic and get rid of your weeds early. This is just a picture of the spring. That's how it should look. This is an experiment with doing no mulch. But we keeping your garlic beds clean in the spring is the main thing. At the 4-leaf stage, you can do a supplemental vitamin punch foliar feed. Peaceful Valley Farm Supply, your local nursery. There's a bunch of different spots where you can do a standard application of a foliar feed to the leaves to give it a little extra kick. We would do that every spring. It's not necessary, but the garlic does like it. Irrigate, I would say, deeply and less frequent, maybe 2 times a week with a good inch of water applied. Drip irrigation is best, but sprinkler irrigation is fine. But I would try to plant it, plant garlic. If you're doing a raised bed setup, plant your garlic by itself, because it does have different, water needs than, say, a freshly germinated crop of lettuce or carrots, which needs kind of daily watering while it's growing. And then, maybe every 3 days when it's in its growth cycle. Garlic would rather have 2 or even 1 heavy water a week, and then let it dry out. So before you irrigate, do the finger test, put your finger in 2 or 3 inches into the ground. If it's still moist, let it dry down a little bit. It can handle a good dry out before your next irrigation. Spring is also a time to identify any issues with disease. Yellowing at the tips is often a nutrient deficiency. Yellowing at the base can be a sign of a more serious fungal or viral issue. We do this thing called culling, which is any diseased looking plant that's in the mix in the spring. We dig it out and we don't put it in our compost. You put it in the trash and get rid of it. Some cloves may be harvesting or maybe experiencing a little bit of fungal issues. Maybe it didn't get soaked in the vodka well. Maybe it had, it was for some reason was holding on to a plant disease. It's best to get that out of your field before it, kind of spreads. And then the last thing is scape removal. If you're growing hardneck garlic, I think we can go to the next slide. We'll see what we have here for, okay, we'll get to scape removal in a minute. This is just showing what I call the 4-leaf stage. So you can see there's, 4 or 5 actual leaves emerging. That's a great time to apply your first foliar feed. We would do a subsequent second foliar feed 2 weeks after that, and then that would be it. You don't want to foliar feed your garlic when it's 2 feet tall and it's 2 weeks away from harvest time. The whole idea of foliar feeding is to get your vegetative plant as lush and healthy as you can, and then let it grow. And that green growth above ground is what feeds the development of the bulb below ground during the later 2 months before harvest. So feed it early, feed it twice if you want to, and then let it do its thing. All right, so scape removal. That's my son Joro going a little bit crazy on the garlic. He's now 8. Scape removal is best to do when the garlic makes a curl, its first curl. This variety does this kind of 360 double curl. Most varieties just do 1 curl. When a garlic comes up and does 1 curl, you want to snap the scape right at the last emerging leaf blades, right at that, right at the level of the leaf blades. You want to remove that. They're excellent to cook with. Saute that in olive oil, a little salt and pepper, and it's a great side dish. You can also make garlic scape pesto. It's kind of like a green bean artichoke garlicky flavor. It's delicious. It's a great benefit to growing hardneck garlic. Removing it also redirects energy and vigor back into the bulb. We've done experiments where we've just left, the scape on, and we've seen significant bulb size reduction if you leave the scape on. So great thing to remove and cook with and enjoy. All right, so summertime, I would say in general, 2 weeks after the scape's harvest is a good time to stop irrigation. And that's with the hardnecks. With the softneck, and that's why I like to grow, even if I'm going to grow primarily softneck, I'll grow a little bit of hardneck just to help with as an indicator of when to stop irrigation. In general, I would say if you plant in November, you're going to be harvesting in late June or early July. So by mid-June, you want to stop irrigation. And the reason for that is you want to begin a slow and steady dry down of your soil before you pull the garlic out of the ground. It's my experience and thought that the more slow and natural the dry down process of the bulb is, the longer storability you have. And so you want to begin that curing process several weeks before it actually comes out of the ground. You can always check the bulb with your fingers, remove some soil and look at, is the bulb developed? Does it have segmented cloves? Does it look like it's a nice size? The green leaf count is also a great indicator. With hardneck garlic, it's more important than softneck. Softneck garlic you can harvest once the whole plant is dead and it's fallen over, and you're still going to get, nice looking bulb underneath. With hardneck garlic, when half the plant is green and half the plant is dying back and brown, that's when you want to pull it out. And I would even say err on the side of a little bit more green than dyed back. The green represents a bulb wrapper that's intact, and the dead represents a bulb wrapper that's already started to degrade. The more bulb wrappers you have, the longer it's going to store. So, that's the main indicator. You can look at the bulb underground and see if it's ready. Like I said, after 8 or 9 months of being in the ground, your harvest is when you want to be the most careful. We've had an agreement on the farm during harvest. If somebody spears a bulb at harvest time, we all stop, and everybody that's harvesting eats the whole bulb. That's a little bit intense. We've had some throwing up on the farm, definitely. Just be careful when you're harvesting. It's been in the ground for almost an entire year. The last thing you want to do is put your spade in a little bit too close to the bulb and spear it before you even get it out of the ground. So real gentle. Pull it out of the ground, brush the dirt off. We like to bunch it in bunches of 10 with baling twine, and then just hang it in a cool, dark and dry, well-ventilated garage, barn, tool shed, anywhere where it's going to be out of direct sunlight and have some good ventilation to let it cure. That could take anywhere from 2 weeks in hot, dry climates to maybe a month in a maritime climate. After you harvest, trim the stalk to about 1 inch or 2 above the bulb, trim the roots off to, almost at bulb level, get all the dirt off, and put it in a paper bag. Cool, dark, and dry is the best way to store it. It's also nice to, at the time of cleaning, to separate what you want to save for your own planting stock and what you want to save for gifts and home use. Yep. So that's what I said there. You can see the garlic here is, a little, I would say a majority green on that picture. We had a lot of garlic to harvest that year. So, if we start when it's a little bit green in 3 or 4 days, when we're done, that same variety is going to be, mostly brown. So it's better to err, especially with hardneck, on the side of a little bit early than a little bit late. Yeah, this is one thing we didn't talk about, the unfurling of the scape. So this is a scape that at first was curled, and then after it curls, it starts to uncurl. And when it's about at a 45-degree angle downward, that's also an indicator of a great time to harvest. Once it's sticking straight up, that means that bulb is about to open and have seeds and propagate itself that way. So we always would leave the first bulb in a row, the scape on, to as an indicator of harvest time. This is just kind of a joke, but kind of also funny. I was looking for a harvest crew, and there was my harvest crew that was able to help out that year. This is just showing how different ways we hang and cure the garlic. The one on the right here shows about 2 or 3 weeks after all the green is gone. The roots are brittle, the top is brittle, and it's ready for cleaning so that they look like that. So that's kind of the end product. Hardneck garlic is on the left. You can see the stem kind of differentiates it from the softneck garlic, which is cut a little shorter, but the roots are cut really nicely. In the past, I've used a toothbrush to get all the dirt off of the roots and everything. On a home scale, that's definitely a good way to do it. But this is the best way to store it. Nice and clean, nice and trimmed, all the dirt off, all the moisture off, and a cool, dark, and dry spot. All right, guys, we're wrapping up here. I just did want to mention this. I'm not going to read the whole poem. If you wanted to look up the Bauer manuscript, it is a pretty amazing poetic prose about ancient garlic's medicinal uses and some flowery language around how it was discovered. but one of the oldest, the Bauer manuscript is one of the oldest surviving texts that exists. It explains the Indian traditional medicine, or Ayurveda. It was written on a birch bark in Sanskrit. And basically the opening 7 lines all describe this healing mountain where these, or a sacred mountain where these healing plants grow. And just to wrap it up and say that, when you grow garlic, you're growing a bulb that has been grown the season before, and the season before, and the season before, and the season before by somebody. Unlike lettuce or corn or so many other plants that the seed is viable for years after it's harvested, garlic, a clove won't last more than 1 season. And so every single year that a garlic is planted, somebody before that has also had to plant that same varietal every single fall. So it's something that I love to think about when I'm planting garlic is, who planted this, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 100 years ago. It is a connection to the garlic and the history of garlic and its past. So thank you, everybody. I went a little bit over my 1 hour allotted time, but I'll hang on here as long as anybody wants to discuss. And also, I put my email at the end on the resources. If anybody has any follow-up questions, wants me to come out and inspect their plot, please just email me and keep in touch. I am always looking for a 1/4 acre to a 1/2 acre of land that somebody in the area wants to do a garlic experimentation with. So if that's you, let me know, and we can grow a little bit of garlic on the coast here. But thank you, everybody, so much. We're going to look at your questions. And like I said, if you don't have time to address them, please do follow up with me by email.
Thank you so much, Pete. That was incredible. And of course, you answered most of the questions in your subsequent presentation. A couple of things that maybe didn't get touched on too much were gophers and moles. I think particularly around here, gophers, in terms of, do they eat them?
Great question. Yeah. So, sandy soil, irrigated soil, root crop, even though garlic is very intense flavor and very pungent, and is often planted around fruit trees, around roses, around different crops as a deterrent to pests such as deer and voles and moles. Critters under the ground are curious, and they will often, especially on the edge of a bed, go in and, oh, there's some moisture here. Oh, there's something growing underground, and they'll take a bite. They often won't pull the whole thing down and eat it all. But yes, the gophers can be an issue with garlic. It's in the ground for a long time, so it's kind of dangling there underground. So my best recommendation for that, if the safest way is to plant into raised garden boxes that have a, chicken wire or gopher wire lined bed, which is going to exclude them. But if that's not an option, or that's not how you grow, just keeping an eye on any signs of gopher activity and setting traps. That's my best advice on that one.
Sounds great. And I loved your soaking in vodka. I know the question had been a recommendation about sterilizing, soaking in some alcohol, but the other part of that was soaking it also in some fertilizer at the same time, separately, I think, but before planting. Have you heard of that, and would you recommend it?
Right. So let's see. I have heard of. I haven't done any pre-planting soaking of a fertilizer. The only thing I've done is the alcohol for the fungal and viral issues. I have heard of soaking it in molasses, and I can't remember honestly what that was for the sugar, and then there was some kind of something that you would use as a foliar feed, but was actually used to pre-soak the cloves. My thoughts are to focus on improving the fertility in the soil. And I guess one other thing that we have used is a mycorrhizal inoculant. So mycorrhizal inoculant, I think, well, reforestation technology. I can't remember the name of the company. If you Googled mycorrhizal inoculant for home gardening, that is something that we have used directly in the planting holes with garlic, and as kind of a planting time amendment. But to keep it simple, I think the best way for getting fertility and getting good, vigor in your garlic is very healthy addition of compost into your garden bed, 6 to 8 inches deep, and relying on the fertility in the soil for the majority of your health needs for the garlic.
Yep.
I just saw a quick question pop up about deer damage. Yeah, like I said, I've seen garlic planted, and I've read about it as a deterrent for deer around fruit trees, around rose bushes. It does have the sulfur compound in garlic is what's responsible for its odor, and that does have a very strong effect for critters. That being said, again, animals are explorative. They're going to want to check things out. So I have seen damage done to the leaves. And I would just say that, whatever you can do to exclude deer from your property in general, they're probably more likely to go for the romaine lettuce than the garlic. And plant a full bed of it, and hopefully they'll only experiment and say, oh, that's too intense, and leave it alone.
Yeah.
I can't remember the comment that just popped up, but I do remember from earlier, not only do deer love to, test these kind of green spring emerging leaves, but you can cut the lower leaves of garlic when it's, a foot or so high, and use that like you would a chive. And it's not going to really affect the bulb size, not going to damage the plant. If you snip a couple, if you have 30 or 40 garlic plants, a couple of bottom leaves from each plant here and there throughout its growing cycle, you absolutely can use that for cooking, put it in your scrambled eggs, mix it into a dressing. That along with the scapes are a great kind of secondary harvest to your actual bulb. And one other comment, I guess I would say for that is, a lot of times, and this is if you're growing more garlic, maybe more, not quite commercial scale, but if you have any tiny small garlics, that you fill up your garden bed with the largest cloves first, because the largest cloves will produce the largest bulbs the next year. If you save a whole bunch of your smaller cloves, you can plant those at real tight density, like as close together as you can, 1 inch apart, in rows, 1 inch apart, just plant them really close. And you can harvest those in, say, March, April, May as green garlic. And so you just pull the entire thing before it's kind of like a little mini leek, but much more flavorful. So that's a great way to use, if you have any excess cloves and you want to plant them, you can plant them really close together, harvest them in the spring, and use the entire plant, all the way from the white kind of semi-bulbing part all the way up to the top of the leaves.
Right. So if you have, and I actually have some garlic I didn't plant from last year. If I look at those and they're soft, and then they're not going to be good to plant, but will I be able to tell if in fact they're not good to plant? They're not viable anymore?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in general, a year is a long time. In general, if you grab the clove and you squeeze it and the clove itself is soft, it's probably not going to be a good viable seed. Sometimes I have just at the end of a batch, I've planted them really close together, and maybe 50% will actually germinate and the other 50% will just kind of rot in the soil. So, I would say, it's again worth experimenting, but in general, a nice firm clove with a good clove cover is going to be best for planting.
So is it too late to order garlic for this year, as another question came?
Right. Yeah. So it's not too late. I believe on the resources page.
No?
Great. So yeah, there is that garlic primer by Orrin Martin. It's a great resource as well to supplement anything I've discussed here. Fillory Farm, they're friends of ours. They're in the Okanagan Valley in northern eastern Washington state. They grow a lot of different varieties of garlic. I believe I checked on their website today. They do still have several varieties available and ones that are good for here. Great. Somebody just ordered music from Renee's. I'm super curious to see how music does in this climate. So anybody, do not hesitate to send me an email to let me know. Fillory Farm, Renee's Garden, Peaceful Valley Farm Supply, all these spots I've got garlic from in the past. And they do still have stock available. So yeah, it's not too late to order. And like I said, if anybody's having a trouble sourcing garlic, you can email me. I'll reach out to my friend who's planting this weekend. And I know that he'll have some extra as well. So yeah, that's definitely not too late. You know, even if you only get 1 or 2 pounds or 1 or 2 bulbs, start this season, get some in the ground and get it going.
Okay, let's, Elise, if you could go back to the what's coming up next slide. There we go. We just want to let you know a couple of things. One, please copy that survey link. We would love to, it's an evaluation. We'd love to have your feedback on this, as we do with all of our classes. Very helpful to us. And then in a month or so, you will also receive an email survey from our California Master Gardeners office out of Davis, because they do surveys about how much of the information that is provided in our classes is used, which is very helpful in terms of fundraising, as you can imagine. So we have classes coming up. In fact, starting very soon now, our fall plant sale will start. I think it's actually, so you may see some of that already if you're on our mailing list. I haven't gotten my notice yet, but I think we will in the next couple of days. A plant list, and it's a 2-day sale. Actually, it's a 1-week sale. Excuse me, it's a 1-week sale. So look for that. On October 29, we're doing microgreens year round, and that'll actually be a live presentation. November 10th, we're going to do a garden tools TLC class, how to care for your garden tools, particularly over the winters. That's another Zoom. And one coming up is on wildflowers, not weeds. We don't have a date for that one yet. So again, evaluation, see if there's anything else I've forgotten. Anything else, Delise, you have? Please do the evaluation. And great.
We actually do have a date for the Wildflowers Not Weeds. I think it might be sold out.
Oh, okay. Well, look on our website. For all of our classes are on our website, so look there. Also, we will send all of you this the slide presentation and this Zoom video recording, so you'll have access to that. And we put all of those, almost all of them, it's very rare that we don't, on our website. So look in gardening information on our website, and you'll see lots of our classes there that you can go through and learn more about. So thank you so much, Pete. This is really terrific. I know I'm eager to go out there and give it a try. I bet everyone else is. And let us know what you think. But we'll do this again sometime, maybe next year at the same time.
And the Wildflowers Not Weeds is November 19th. It is not sold out. So
thank you.
Please feel free to log in.
Great. And somebody has given another link here to Rare Seeds, garlic and bulbs. So that's good to know too.
I wanted to know on that link, which garlic bulbs on that link are good for our area before I order.
I'm looking.
So that's
I'm looking right now. Give me a second.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Egyptian walking dumba. Okay, so I would say I've never grown this variety, but they have a beautiful standard purple stripe. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
looks like they have a beautiful standard purple stripe called Dubna, D-U-B-N-A. And it's a, like I said, looks like it's a marbled purple stripe, which is very similar. It's the same family as the Siberian, which I recommended.
That's exactly what I was looking at. So thank you.
I'd say go for that one, and let me know, where are you growing?
In Seaside.
Okay. I would love to know how that does for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the notes on it. I would say that one I would try. You know, a half pound is probably, you know, maybe 2 to 4 bulbs or something like that, which would be enough to experiment with.
Unfortunately, it's out of stock.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, but they send an email when they get it back in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
gonna
So
go
I
back
would
there.
I would try that one.
Mhm.
I just got a note from somebody that said that in Santa Clara County, which is, you know, a little bit more inland than where you are,
Mhm.
they had great success with music. It looks like they do still have
Mhm.
music available, which is
Mhm.
kind of the standard for you know, for hardneck garlic. So I would say that
Okay.
one is also, you know, I would definitely, if the Dubna is not available, I would say
Mhm.
give music a try. And then, like I said, send me an email if you have trouble, and I could likely get you in Chilium red. But I would say, you know, a half pound of the Dubna and a half pound of the music to experiment with would be a great option. Yeah, Baker's Creek is awesome. I've never got garlic from them, but I've got a lot of other seeds from them. Check out Fillery Farm as well. I think that they
Okay.
still have some unique varietals available as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you everyone for coming and listening in, and happy garlic growing. Thanks to Pete. Good.
Pete,
All
that
right.
was wonderful. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank
All
you all
right,
for coming.
everybody. Thanks so much, and a happy garlic planting this fall. Please keep in touch, and until next time.
Great. Thanks much.
Bye-bye.